You're listening to Karle and Kenner's Hitting the Bar. In the blue corner, we've got Mr. Karle supporting Tottenham. In the red corner, we've got Mr. Kenner supporting Arsenal. Together, they will be discussing all of your football views, all of your football news. So join us here on Karle and Kenner's Hitting the Bar.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the football podcast Karle and Kenner's Hitting the Bar. I'm Chris Karle.
I'm Steve Kenton.
And I'm Geoff Saunders.
Hello Steve, and hello Geoff. We've got a lot to get through. We've been on an international break. So first of all, I want to welcome Steve back because you've missed all the talk about Arsenal.
No, I haven't missed it. I've just been avoiding it.
That's why you've not been here. But we will start with the internationals because that's what's been happening this last week. Let's start, of course, with England. I want to ask both of you, is Southgate getting it right? Because I did see a little snippet from Radio 5 Live. Somebody called in and said that if England want to win the Euros, they need to get Mourinho. Southgate is an arm round the shoulder type of guy, and they need somebody who can win it. So let's address Southgate and his tactics first.
He's playing at the moment. England are playing to their strengths. He's certainly set the side up to play to their strengths. I think England do have still have a problem at the back. I think the centre halves aren't functioning as well as they possibly could. Creative midfielder, as we've been speaking about off air, actually, Maddison probably should be in the starting lineup. I've got to be honest, I have a little question mark over our goalkeeping situation as well. I like Pickford, but I'm not entirely convinced at international level.
I would go along with the Pickford comment. He's not an international goalkeeper and never will be. And I'm not convinced that Pope is either. So maybe Pickford's the best we got, but it's hardly a ringing endorsement, is it? I certainly agree about Maddison. Why the player who's provided the most assists last season in the Premier League and has so far this season, why is he not a shoo-in to the England team? We are deficient there, and if you look at the teams that have won every single international tournament, they're the team that get the ball into the penalty area on the ground, and that's Maddison's job, and that's what he does brilliantly. England will not win. England will be knocked out by the first decent team we face, which will probably be the quarterfinals, as usual.
What is it that we need then, apart from Maddison being picked?
Well, we need a good holding midfielder. We need Maddison in there. The rest of the forwards I'm happy with. They're very creative, they're fast, they cause huge problems. Well, the defence is a problem. Chilwell at left back is brilliant, utterly brilliant. Maguire is okay, and he's had an okay season. It's no better than that, but he is a good central defender. We need somebody alongside him. We need Gomez fit, actually, because I think if you had a player with skill like Gomez at centre back beside Maguire, then that tightens things up. I like Trippier at right back. TA squared, yeah, I'm happy with him too. It's the centre of defence, and we need a creative midfielder. And I don't understand what Southgate has against creative players.
I like Southgate. I think he's a steady Eddie manager. We've had some great results through the qualifying tournament. Are any of the sides that we played against world beaters? Absolutely not. But you can only beat who's in front of you. And, we scored an awful lot of goals at international level. That takes some doing.
Yeah, it does, but it leads to the narrative which the British press are pushing and the media as a whole are pushing. Because we scored so many goals and got so many points, we must be wonderful. Well, no, you do have to look at the quality of the opposition, and we should have scored that number of goals against those teams, and we should have got that number of points. That is the minimum. Does that mean we can go into a competition and take on teams of the level of, say, Belgium and win? No.
Well, we could have Portugal in our group because we are seeded, but they could be straight away in our group. So yeah, that's a big team.
Yeah, I mean there are a number of countries like that. We found it in the last World Cup. First good team we played, Croatia, they beat us. And why did they beat us? Because they had Modric. And for Modric, read Maddison. That's how you win games. You get the ball into the penalty area on the ground. And Kane is a great striker. He'll score. So will Sterling. So will any of those front five. Give them the ball properly. But playing the way we're playing at the moment, the good teams will just sit back, pick us off, and we'll lose, as we usually do.
What I found alarming, guys, was wasn't the result against the Czech Republic. You can have a slip-up like that, and it does happen. Every country has that kind of slip-up. But what was really concerning was actually the first game against Kosovo, where we conceded 3 goals. Now, I'm not knocking Kosovo. They're a reasonably okay side, but for Kosovo to score 3 against England is a worry. You look at our defence, and I think we could be we could be ripped to small, tiny pieces by a country like Portugal, and as you rightly say, like Belgium, Italy, 9-1 winners. Okay, it was against Armenia, but Armenia, 10 points. They're not pushovers either. Armenia and Kosovo, similar sort of level, footballing-wise?
I think Kosovo are a better team than Armenia, but in many ways, they're both very small countries, both developing countries in many ways, especially footballing. I think Kosovo's probably more of a football nation. I don't think football's that popular. I think in Kosovo, they're quite fanatic, and we'll talk about the way they received England in a moment. But I think Kosovo are a lot better than Armenia, personally.
Yeah,
they're not world class, though. No, not by any stretch.
I think that's right. But mentioning Italy, Italy would be my tip to win it. They've got a group of fantastic young players coming through that are doing very well in the Italian league, and for Italy, they know how to win, and Italy knows how to win a tournament. Now, if we go back to your comment, you were quoting this moron who said England should have Mourinho instead of Southgate. Why anybody would want that toxic has-been? He is comfortably 15 years out of date. He's yesterday's
15?
man, and, well, maybe more. I don't understand what he could possibly add that would make England any better. Southgate has created a fantastic team there that think of themselves as a team. They play for each other. They like each other. Why would you tear that up and throw in? It's like just throwing a nail bomb into the room. Why do it for somebody that is as far out of date as Mourinho is?
Yeah, I'd have to say, Steve, watching England, sometimes it can be quite dire. There was moments in the Kosovo game when they were actually strolling forward with the ball, just slowly kicking it in front of them, going across the halfway line, but looking behind them to see, literally turning their heads behind them to see where they could do the pass back. This is even before they'd scored, and they would. So there are moments in a Southgate game where you do feel very, very uneasy because they look like very dodgy in defence, first of all, but then there isn't a creativity. But once they get past the halfway line, something sparks, and they seem to be quite an exciting team. There seem to be a lot of moves that have been worked out, and I think that my point being is that I think Geoff's right. Those players do seem to enjoy playing, pardon the pun, but with each other.
I hope no one's looking to get pulled off at half time.
Yes, but they do seem to enjoy being in the same team together.
Yeah,
they do work for each other.
There's a camaraderie.
There's a camaraderie. That's exactly the word. A harmony. Before we move on, though, and talk about the Kosovo game and the way Kosovo welcomed England and the England players. So, Geoff, as I said, before we move on and talk about Kosovo, let's have your trivia question for this week.
Claudio Ranieri, Jose Mourinho, Vicente Del Bosque, Carlo Ancelotti and Dave Mackay all have one thing in common as managers. What is it?
All right, Steve, you got any ideas?
Like Unai Emery, I am absolutely clueless.
Oh, very good. Which leads us on to our next but one subject. So Kosovo, there was a huge welcome for the England players and England supporters. Welcome brothers. Even during the national anthem, which is the United Kingdom national anthem, they held up crosses of St George. The Kosovo fans did. It was a bit weird, actually. It was almost too much love. But it was a wonderful atmosphere. On Twitter, the England players, were all tweeting, "Thank you for the reception. Thank you for being such a lovely people. What a beautiful country you have, and we wish you a lot of luck." So there was a lot of sort of mutual love and respect, which is wonderful. What a relief after the Bulgaria games.
Do you know what? It was nice to see. I think anybody with a sane mind abhors racism. There are some people that could argue there's a little bit of virtue signalling from the Kosovans. I disagree. I just think it was a lovely gesture and should be taken as a lovely gesture. We've seen the ugly side of football in relation to what occurred, in Bulgaria and Sweden, Romania as well. There was a horrible incident, a horrible racist incident. So, no, it's nice to see. It's good to see, and we'd rather be seeing that in football than the opposite.
Yeah, I think that's all true, but for me, the big problem was always going to be the England supporters, who are just absolutely terrible, and they usually go to the city of the place where the match is taking place. They take over, like in a military manoeuvre, they take over the centre square and they put up barricades and they hang their St George's flags out. But this time they went there and the Kosovans already hung their St George's flags out. So all the thugs standing there saying, "Well, what do we do?"
Now, yeah. Yeah, beautiful city, and like you say, the Kosovans had taken it over for them. For a bit weird, but so well done. I mean, well done, Kosovo, for that lovely reception. Yeah. There's a bit of a sort of name calling over it. Was it a political thing? Because there's still British troops there, by the way, who met the England team at the airport. They must have worried about the military meeting. That's what's going on. But
well, I mean, we are where we are. It is a country now, and you know that old argument is now dead. It is a country. They're a new football nation, and they're doing very well. Their players play in the top leagues in Europe. It's great.
Yeah, good luck to them, and well done for that nice reception. No, as Steve Kenton said, you know, no racism, no hint of it. There was no arrest, no violence. It was just a game of football that everybody enjoyed, and both teams got a round of applause at the end. That's how it should be. However, talking of harmony in the stadium, not so much at the Emirates. Steve, you've missed the last couple of episodes of the podcast, hiding because obviously Arsenal was the main topic of conversation. It is now.
Yeah. Oh dear. I don't even know where to begin. I've got to be honest with you, Chris. It's like stepping out of mud, treading in cack. It's the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it? You know, everything is imploding internally at Arsenal. David O'Leary at the moment, who has an ambassadorial role at Arsenal, there is a possibility that he could be put onto the board at Arsenal. Head of football, Raul Sanalehi, and I think I pronounced that correctly, is balking against the idea. Then we've got ex-Arsenal player Steve Morrow, who, I don't know whether you guys remember, but got his arm broken during the 1993, I can't remember if it was the FA Cup or the League Cup final, when lifted by Tony Adams. He's a respected coach at Arsenal, highly respected coach. He's been sacked. It's almost as though Arsenal's DNA is being slowly stripped by Unai Emery and his team. Nobody can quite work out what is going on. I think Emery has probably got about 2 games left, one of which against Southampton, maybe 3, one against West Ham, one against Norwich, before he's out the door.
The whole thing's like a tableau or a metaphor for Brexit, isn't it, really?
Yeah. If you're looking for the word mess, then yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Let's concentrate on Emery, what you two guys think of Emery. I mean, for me, as a Tottenham fan, you know, I think they should keep him, because obviously things aren't right. We've had the Granit Xhaka debacle we've spoken on previous episodes. The captain, well, throwing the teddy out the pram and all that, toys out the pram. I think he's hardly hasn't played since, has he?
No.
They reckon they're going to transfer him out. You've got the whole captains being elected by the players. You've got Emery not being understood by the players. The fans complaining, which nobody's surprised about. The whole thing, as you say, is a mess, but where do they start? What do you guys think they should start with, the manager or something else?
Well, I reckon the players should actually take a vote and elect Neil Warnock to come in. Well, no, I am joking, of course.
I'd love to see that, though.
Yeah, I know you would. Might go for Pochettino at this rate. You know what? We are rotten from the top down. From Kroenke downwards, everything is wrong. I can't think of an aspect of Arsenal's hierarchy at the moment that is right. The hierarchy from Kroenke downwards is completely rotten. Sanalehi, just about everybody is in a mess. Nobody knows what they're doing, and that's the problem.
And the reason nobody knows what they're doing is you've got too many chiefs and not enough Indians, frankly. I didn't even know about this Sanalehi guy. So he's the head of football, and Edu is the director of football, and then there's a manager. I mean, bringing in David O'Leary above all these at board level is just going to make things worse. It's just another opinion, whereas what you need is direction. You don't need more chat and more votes. You need direction. You need a manager who inspires belief in his players, has a scheme. The director of football goes out to buy the players to fit the scheme, and the whole thing goes. And none of that is happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure it's politically correct to say too many chiefs and not enough Indians these days. Can we say too many billionaires and not enough workers?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a farce, actually. Yeah. And in fact, the thing that reminds me, I love calling them the toasters because they are. But actually, what it reminds me of most is the National Health Service in the 80s. They thought they could solve the National Health Service. Instead of putting more nurses on the wards, they put more managers in the hospital.
Yeah, that whole thing about administrators, wasn't it? Hospital administrators and nobody actually to administer.
Yeah, so you bring in David O'Leary to do something else at board level, whatever that is. When you've got Edu, you've got Sanalehi, and they brought in your Swedish player from years ago, helping with the team as well. I mean, I'll go back to it. It's too many chiefs and not enough Indians, and they don't have a bloody clue.
I mean, it is, Steve, isn't it? It's like the head of football, director of football. It is, as Geoff said, they're just inventing titles.
I mean, there's rumours that Mourinho could come in, Mikel Arteta, Patrick Vieira. You know what? I mean, look, Maxi Allegri is available. Whether he'd want the job is another matter, given the current climate at Arsenal. Rafael Benitez, again, somebody who could steady that particular ship, because that's what needs to happen at the moment.
Well, actually, Steve, you might have just predicted something there, because just this week Benitez did, and he's in China, isn't he? Immersing himself into culture. Sorry, burying himself in money. He has said this week that he wants to return soon, with, I think, with the words, it was the word he used, wants to return soon to the Premier League.
And the club that have approached him is West Ham.
West Ham, that'd be a great fit for West. That'd be a coup for West Ham, I think.
It'd be a great fit for West Ham. The problem with Benitez at Arsenal is it will be the amount of control behind the scenes for transfers, and that's always been the problem Benitez has had, having other people controlling what he regards as his team.
He's very much his own man, isn't he?
He's his own man.
Doesn't like to be interfered with.
And if you look at what he's done for Newcastle in the last couple of years, then you'd be very sensible to give him the job and let him get on with it. Every club he's been at, he's sorted out their training, everything behind the scenes in coaching, and every club has been better after he's left.
But Steve, Geoff is saying Benitez is possibly going to West Ham. That's a rumour. Of all the managers we've mentioned, Luis Enrique and Benitez there and Mourinho, who would be on your shortlist?
Maxi Allegri. He's available. He's got a good track record. Don't get me wrong, he's not. I wouldn't put him in the top 5 managers in the world, or possibly even the top 10. But he would be a good enough addition to steady this particular ship. I think that he could possibly be able to work with the board in its current state, which is what you want. You need someone who's not going to either capitulate to everything that the board wants, nor throw his toys out the pram and just walk away. And I think Maxi Allegri does fit that bill.
Yeah, I think that's right. If you look at his results at Juventus, I mean, Conte created the team that went on to win it 7 times. It was his creation, his team. But Allegri was clever enough not to break something that wasn't, not to fix something that wasn't broken, and certainly never ever argued in any way with his bosses. He was regarded by the players as a bit of a patsy. Is he in the top 5 in Europe? Not convinced, but definitely top 10, and he's the best that's available at the moment, unless Arsenal want to go out, spend a lot of money paying off Emery, and then spend money buying off the contract of someone else, a Tuchel or a Nagelsmann. And Nagelsmann is rumoured very, very strongly to be on his way to Tottenham.
Well, that's interesting, because you just mentioned about paying a lot of money to Emery to sack him because of this ridiculous compensation theory. But I've been sacked from jobs. I didn't even get a goodbye, let alone, here's an extra 30 million. It's 34 million, allegedly, apparently, according to the press, media. 34 million to pay off Pochettino. How much would they have to pay off Emery, and would it be worth it? I mean, I think you're both right. I kind of like the idea of Allegri. If I was an Arsenal fan, as a Tottenham fan, prefer, like you said, Steve, that the players elect the next manager between them.
I think what has to be remembered here is Arsenal have a squad of players, and actually they have a good squad of players. They're not bad players. You've got a couple of very average players in there, but generally that squad is a decent squad that can be turned into eventually a top 4 squad. There's no reason why it can't. There needs to be a couple of additions, a couple of removals. I mean, we've got to take the toaster out for a start. I mean,
Xhaka, you mean?
Yeah, Granit Xhaka's got to go.
What about Mustafi and Socrates?
Do you know what? This is going to sound absolutely bizarre. Mustafi is not a particularly good first-team player. I think he's a very average first-team player at best. But as a squad player, he's useful in the same way as we had Squillaci or Stepanovs. OK, they were just clearly not first-team players, but they would produce the odd game where they were half decent. And Mustafi, I think, is capable of that. I think, actually, Socrates is more of a weak link than Mustafi, which is possibly a strange thing to say, and I'm sure many Arsenal fans will go, what? But we can't strip our entire defence in one go. It has to be done gradually. So, yeah, eventually Mustafi has to go, but we have to find players who are better than what we have. And at the moment, there aren't that many available.
Well, you started off there saying you've got a decent squad. Now you're saying you need new ones.
Yeah, but we will need new ones. But we have got a decent squad. We've got a squad good enough to challenge for the top 4. I mean, look, we're playing dreadfully and we're 6th at the moment. The coaching is a mess, and that the players don't know what to do. We can score goals ad infinitum. We know that. Aubameyang, Lacazette, Pepe, I'm sure will start firing soon. You've got to give him a bit of time. We can score goals. Our defending is shocking. If we can sort the back out, then we might have half a chance of competing, not this season, but next season for a top 4 spot.
Well, he's been there a while now, Emery. It's not just this season, He didn't just start at the beginning of this season, did he? So he's had a little bit of time to bed in. You're saying the squad's decent. You said they're good enough for top four. Geoff was shaking his head. I was internally shaking my head. So I'm surprised as a Tottenham fan, and we're 14th in the league, and I can't understand that. I can't understand how that you're actually as high as 6th, to be honest, having watched the way you play.
That was some very good early results. I mean, they're not even a top 6 team. If you look at the players, those players, they're not a top 6 squad at all, compared to Wolves, for example.
Well, yeah, we're talking about top 6. Yeah.
Leicester are much, much better.
And what about Manchester United?
Better.
I think Manchester United have got a better squad.
I think Manchester United have got a better squad, and I don't think United are higher than 6th either. No, and the Arsenal squad needs a lot of work on it.
So you both agree it needs an overhaul, but
yeah.
Steve is talking about tinkering. You're talking about removing the engine and putting a new one in.
Very much so, and your choice of the word engine is the point. Guendouzi runs around like a headless chuck because, well, no, he does because he's the only one that's got the heart and the willingness to fight for that team. No one else is. He's in midfield. He is a good, I think, potentially an extremely good box-to-box midfielder. But he needs a holder. He needs a tackler. He needs somebody who's going to win the ball and knit the whole thing together. And you need a much, much better back four than that lot. They're just... off the top of my head, they're the only back four I can think of that's worse than West Ham's. Pepe at 74 million. I said at the time, back in the summer, it was a joke, and it still is. The fact that you're second highest goal scorer in Ligue 1 means absolutely nothing. I mean, there's dog goals. 7 goals in Ligue 1 equals 1 goal in the Premier League. And you pay 74 million for what? And you were the only team after him, which says everything.
But conversely, if you look at the Arsenal setup, I mean, look, the first choice at the back should be Tierney, Bellerin, Holding and Chambers. They're decent players. David Luiz playing at centre-back is an utter liability. David Luiz, I would be sitting next to Guendouzi in midfield. I wouldn't play him at the back. And this is what a lot of Arsenal fans have been saying. They've been screaming about it. Like you say, Guendouzi is a box-to-box player, and yes, he's been running around like a headless chicken. He's probably been responsible, well, he's been partially responsible for a good couple of goals being given away. The Watford goal springs to mind. I think it was the second goal where we were trying to play out from the back. We cannot play out from the back. We just don't have that capability. Why Emery is insisting that we should play out from the back is a mystery to just about everybody. But David Luiz sitting at centre-half is an outright liability, and everybody can see this apart from Emery. Sit Luiz next to Guendouzi in midfield with the back four of Bellerin, Tierney, Holding and Chambers. You might start to see some stability there.
All right, well, Steve, obviously things are rotten in the state of Highbury. Things aren't good. You think the manager needs to change? The overhaul of the squad, that happens every transfer window. It's an ongoing thing, isn't it, a squad? But the manager, you think he's got to go, do you? And when?
I think he's got 3 games, and I think he'll be gone by the second, because we've got a problem here, because whoever comes in is going to want to buy immediately. We've got a January transfer window, so he's going to need to come in, assess the situation. If there isn't somebody already lined up, which I suspect there might be, he's going to want players out. Or a player or 2 out. He's going to want a player or 2 in. He won't be signing more than 2 players in the January transfer window, because it's very rare that you get a situation where you get a massive change in January. But he's going to want to steady that ship, and I can see Xhaka going. I think Özil will stay, strangely enough. I think Özil will stay, but I think Xhaka will go. And I think that at least 1 or 2 players will be brought in.
Before we move on from Arsenal, because it gives me great pleasure, as I've said, because Geoff and I watched it together. We were here in Spain, you were overseas working. Did you actually watch the Arsenal at Leicester game? Because that's the last game that was played before the international break. Because Leicester, for me, Leicester were the most exciting, beautiful, and people call it the beautiful game. Very often, you can't see why they do call it that, but watching that Leicester performance was the epitome of the beautiful game. The way they played was sensational. But was it because Arsenal allowed them, or are Leicester just so far above Arsenal in every part of the pitch, I think, really?
Leicester are way above Arsenal. I mean, it's not even close. I truly believe that Leicester, on their day, are on a par with Manchester City. That's how highly I rate Leicester. I think they are probably the joint second best team in the country. They are absolutely fantastic to watch. It was actually a joy to watch, despite the fact that we lost. And I'll tell you what, we were very, very lucky we didn't get an absolute pasting. To be fair, we were very, very poor as well. But that doesn't detract from the fact of how good Leicester actually were.
So Leicester second in the league currently, Geoff, above Man City fourth, by the way. Everybody talking about a two-horse race a week ago. Now Man City are fourth.
I do have a feeling that it will still be the same two at the end of the season. But I agree with everything you said about Arsenal-Leicester. I mean, Leicester were just wonderful. That's the best football I've seen for a year. It was wonderful. But the thing which sums Arsenal up best, I thought, was their performance in the Vase against Vitoria.
The Vase?
The
Europa League, Geoff, you mean?
UEFA League.
The Vase.
Yeah. People put up the following day, they put up the passing chart. Now, the passing chart it's basically the green football pitch with the markings on it. And they put a blue arrow for every completed pass. And Arsenal made something like 580 passes or something. So basically it covered nearly all of the green with blue from these single lines with arrows on, except for one area. And that was the penalty area. It was entirely clear. Not a single pass from Arsenal into the penalty area.
That's shocking, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, and that is Arsenal for you.
Yeah, talking of the Vase, as you call it, the Europa League, it's like that trophy they have for the sort of non-sporting kids at school. It's not the winning, it's the taking part.
Well, where it comes from is the Rugby Sevens tournaments, where if you lose your first match, you go into the Vase.
Right.
So there's the winners of the first match. They then go in and go up through the ranks in the cup, and the losers. It's the losers competition called the Vase.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, can I just draw your attention to your respective trophy cabinets over the last 2 decades? Now, admittedly, Arsenal have not pulled up any trees, I will grant you that. And to be honest with you, they'd be punching above their weight if they were playing, I don't know, Rochdale at the moment. But we do have the odd trophy in our cabinet, whereas you guys don't. There is an over-reliance on Mr. Sheen in your trophy cabinets.
Well, that was yesterday. Well, it wasn't yesterday, was it? It was a long time ago. We're talking about the Arsenal of today. I mean, to be honest, going back to the Leicester game quickly, I don't think the Arsenal that won all those trophies would have fared much better against that Leicester team, if that's any comfort.
I think the Invincibles might have struggled against the Leicester team.
So, yeah.
I think that probably have ended up in a draw. Do you know what? That would have been an absolutely brilliant game to watch, you know. I was two beautiful sides playing against each other. You know, it'd be like, I don't know, the closest equivalent to Brazil and the Netherlands of the 70s playing against each other. That kind of, total football against total football.
Actually, before we move on from Leicester, it's just popped into my head that actually the way Leicester are playing now under Brendan Rodgers is very similar to the way they played under Ranieri. Actually, that free-flowing, understanding each other and enjoying the game kind of football. They've improved in every single area, actually, since Ranieri, but it is a very similar style of football. It just sort of occurred to me that maybe that's, because it is the same core of players as well.
Well, actually, it isn't. Almost completely changed.
Oh, right.
There's the goalkeeper and Vardy, and almost everyone else has changed.
Oh, well, so I'm wrong there then.
Well, so Mahrez, who was supposed to be irreplaceable, they've replaced him. Kante, irreplaceable, well, they've replaced him. And that midfield, Ndidi, Tielemans, and Maddison.
Maguire, of course.
Yeah, and they got Maguire. Well, they had Maguire in, and they got 80 million for their third best centre back. So that was fantastic business for them, wasn't it? So actually, I think from the goalkeeper and Vardy, it's a completely different team. And what Rodgers has done with them is absolutely brilliant, because most of them were there. In fact, they were all there before he started. So
yeah, true.
Well, apart from the right back who came in the summer. But what he's got is got them playing well, which goes against the narrative which Steve has just said, that whichever manager comes in needs the transfer window. Rodgers came in after the transfer window. If they'd had him for the whole season and the same number of points per game, they'd have got 65 points. They'd have been fifth in the league last season.
Actually, it is the Brendan Rodgers effect.
It's Brendan Rodgers, no question.
Although, apart from Brendan Rodgers, who, we always joke, he'll tell you he is the best manager in the world, etc., etc. He is a very, very good manager, and you can't take that away from him. But Steve said quite rightly, I think, that the problem with Arsenal is that they're rotten from top to bottom.
Yes.
I think Leicester are the complete opposite. They're a well-run club, and everybody enjoys working there.
Well, there's a huge difference, and it comes down to the top. that the people who own Leicester are doing it for reasons which aren't about them earning money out of Leicester as a club. They're earning their money in the back end, back in Asia through betting and all sorts of other things. Stan Kroenke is an American, and the American owners of sports clubs do not want to win things. They want to be in the running to win it. They want to be in the playoffs situation. In other words, get into the Champions League. But they're not interested in winning it. They're not interested in winning the Premier League because you need £500-600 million squad to get into competing for the top four. But they don't want to spend the extra £500 million to become competitive with Liverpool and Manchester City. That's the problem with having an American owner. They're not interested in winning things. Win enough matches to be interesting to keep everything going nicely, get into the Champions League, but that's the end of it.
I completely agree with everything that you've just said there, Geoff. You're quite right. There's this belief that, to finish fourth, look, you can lose 7 games quite easily and finish fourth. The owners do not want to spend that extra money. Why should they? If they're earning X hundred amount of millions and banking that money, well, it's a profit-making. Arsenal is a profit-making exercise, a profit-making entity for the owners. They don't want to rock that boat. So I completely agree with every word you just said there.
Before we reach the end of the show and the answer to Geoff's trivia question, let's have a quick run through the weekend's games because the international break is over. Steve, you read out the games and give us your prediction, and we'll move to Geoff and myself. We'll just have a quick chat about the games and then move to the trivia question.
Okay, so first up, West Ham versus Spurs. This should be a real kind of a mid-table stroke relegation battle.
Oh dear.
A battle of two really dodgy defences. Do you know what? I think that Spurs are going to win that, probably 2-1.
Away at West Ham?
Yeah.
Well, we've got a West Ham fan, Geoff, and myself a Tottenham fan, so...
I'd agree with that, 2-1 to Spurs.
Well, I'm afraid I'm going to have to agree with that. We all agree 2-1 to Tottenham. I think West Ham are in all sorts of disarray. Tottenham are in disarray, but they are still a good, very good team. And when he picks the right side and gets the right combination, I think they'll easily beat West Ham, but I think West Ham might nick a goal because there is that weakness there in Tottenham. As long as I think it's time to stop picking Eriksen.
Yeah, you're probably right in relation to Eriksen, absolutely. Next, moving on to Arsenal versus Southampton, another two dodgy defences.
4-0 to Southampton.
No, I think it could be 6-6 actually. Arsenal can and will score goals. They will leak. I can see a 2-2 draw.
Really? You think
Yeah.
Southampton, who've been dreadful lately?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, you've only got to look at Arsenal's defence. I mean, it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. So I can see Southampton scoring.
2-0 to Arsenal because I can't see Southampton scoring. Who will score goals for Southampton? They don't have anyone.
One of the Arsenal defence will do that. It'll be an own goal and it'll be 3-1 to Arsenal.
Bournemouth versus Wolves. This is a really hard one to call. I love the way Bournemouth play, but Wolves are a very, very good side. I can see a 1-0 away win here.
2-2 for me.
2-2. I'm going to go... It is an interesting one. I think you're both right in some ways. I think it's going to be 2-1 to Wolves.
Brighton versus Leicester. Brighton are doing surprisingly well. They're my tips to go down. Leicester, we're talking total football. I think a 3-0 win for Leicester against Brighton.
All right, Geoff?
I was going to go 3-1 to Leicester.
I'm going to go the same, actually, 3-1 to Leicester. I think Brighton are good enough to get a goal.
Okay, Palace versus Liverpool. Again.
Yeah, move on.
Yeah, let's move on. 3-0 to Liverpool.
1-1.
Ooh.
Blimey, where did that come from?
History.
Something you love and know a lot about. Steve,
yeah, quite clearly.
We shall see. Geoff going for 1-1, we're going for Liverpool.
You're going the same score as myself then, 3-0. Everton versus Norwich.
That's not a game anybody wants to watch.
I like Norwich. I've got a soft spot for Norwich. It's 2-1 to Everton.
2-0 to Everton.
I'm going to go for 1-1.
Watford versus Burnley.
Well, Geoff has said that Watford will come good, that they're a decent side and have been very unlucky. Burnley, who of course beat West Ham 3-0, was it, the other week, before the international break. Burnley are very, very good. I'm going to go for... Is that Watford, is it?
Yeah, it's at Watford.
I think that's going to be a 1-1 draw.
I've gone 0-0.
I agree with Chris. 1-1.
Probably the game of the weekend. Manchester City versus Chelsea. Manchester City, hard to call at the moment. I'm going to go, again, I'm going with a draw on this. I'm going with a 1-1 draw.
It's at Manchester City, is it? I'm going to go 2-1 City.
Yeah, I think that's about right. 2-1 to City if it's at City, yeah.
OK, moving on to Sunday's game. Sheffield United versus Manchester United. Sheffield United in the ascendancy, Man United stabilising. I'm going with a 1-0 Sheffield United win.
1-1.
And I will go for 2-1 to Manchester United.
One of us is going to get it right then. Finally, Aston Villa versus Newcastle. That is a really difficult one to call as well. I'm going to go with a 2-1 win for Villa.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And I'm afraid I'm going to agree with that as well. So we're all going to be right or we're all going to be wrong on that one. That's just about all we've got time for, of course. But before we go and say our goodbyes, the answer to Geoff's trivia question preceded by the question.
OK, the question was... Claudio Ranieri, Jose Mourinho, Vicente Del Bosque, Carlo Ancelotti and Dave Mackay as managers all have one thing in common. What was it? And it was that they were all sacked immediately after winning the league.
I mean, that's ridiculous, isn't it, really?
Yes.
You can understand losing a load of games, but they all won the league and then got sacked shortly after.
Well, yeah, Jupp Heynckes got sacked after winning the European Cup. Roberto Di Matteo was sacked the season after winning the European Cup.
Sure enough, yeah. Van Gaal at Man United got sacked the evening of winning the FA Cup, didn't he? So there's no mercy in football.
Yeah, but I think being sacked after winning the league is different than winning a cup competition, to be honest.
I mean, you win the league and then get sacked. That's harsh, brutal. Well, that's all we have time for. What a fascinating episode. Thank you very much. I'm Chris Karle.
I'm Steve Kenton.
And I'm Geoff Saunders.
And that was Karle and Kenner's Hitting the Bar, the football podcast. Join us next week.
You've been listening to Karle and Kenner's Hitting the Bar. Join us again next week for more of their twisted football news, all of their weird football views. You can find them here every week on Karle and Kenner's Hitting the Bar. We'll see you again shortly.